Welcome, Sally.
Hello, Leash. How are you?
Oh, it's so lovely to have you with us today. Thank you so much for having a chat with us on the podcast.
Thank you.
Sally, do you maybe want to give us a bit of context to your business now, what it looks like, and then we'll kind of go back to where it all started?
Oh, okay. Well, my business is run from home. It's run out of a separate building. I started my house first off, but now I have 3 treatment rooms, reception, kitchen, laundry, and separate bathroom, all out in that separate building. And I now have 2 staff members that work for me. So I have another therapist, and I also have an admin. I am looking for others, so if anyone wants a job, they can contact me. I'm always looking for another therapist to come on board.
Shameless plug. Rock on. This is great. If you're living on the other side of the world, then make sure if you're interested in a bit of a tree change, get in touch with Sally. I love that. So Sally, you obviously haven't always been a practitioner. You had another career in a past. Well, it seems like a past life. What else have you done besides massage?
Yes, that's exactly how I explain. I say in a past life, I was a hairdresser. So I was a hairdresser from my pretty much mid-teens up until I was 45. I still have to say I'm a hairdresser because I can still cut hair, but I don't choose to do that anymore. Went back to school at 45 and retrained. Massage was something that always I had wanted to do, but it came along at the wrong time in my life, and I put it on hold for 25 years. Because children came along. And so when my youngest was in year 9, I went to a careers night with her. And while I was there, I saw a school in Geelong that was offering remedial massage. And I went, oh, great. Okay, that's for me. Grabbed the brochure and went on from there. So that was, we're going back 12, 13 years ago.
Wow. So, Sally, something you said there, I'm really intrigued by. You said that you wanted to do it much, much earlier. What was the wrestle in that? Like, what stopped you from being able to enter this industry earlier?
Um, I was going to do it as a beauty therapist, massage therapist. So I was going to do it as an add-on to hairdressing. Thought it was going to be a good mix. Very, very glad I didn't go down that track and went down the remedial massage track instead years and years later. But yeah, it was just my husband and I had not long got married. He is a subcontractor truck driver. Back then, he worked extremely long hours that would get up at 2 a.m. and he would go off to work and get home at about 8 o'clock at night. I was going to go to school at 7 p.m. and get home at midnight. So I didn't think that was a good start to a marriage, and because we would probably never see each other. So put it all on hold and waited. But it was 25 years wait.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Seeing each other between midnight and 2 a.m. is probably not the most quality time you're going to get.
No.
And that's a big call. But I mean, you guys have been married how many years now?
36.
So clearly prioritizing the right things early on in marriage might be one of your keys to success. That's pretty cool.
Possibly.
Sally, what was it like? So did you work a lot when your children were younger?
No, we chose just for me to be a stay-at-home mum. I did do mobile hairdressing. So when they were very young, like small children, babies, I went out to work once Robert got home at night. So I had done my full-time job of being a mum all day. And then I started my second job at night, which I can't say was always the greatest thing to do because you might think, well, who wants their hair done late at night? Many shift workers love a hairdresser that will come out and work from 8 p.m. till 2 a.m. And that's what I was doing. And mums that would wait till the kids went to bed. So, yeah, I was doing some long hours and then I would come home and fall in the bed myself and then have to get up again and do it all over again when my own children woke up. So I did that for about 2 years and just about killed myself. When my kids were older and went to school, then that's when I changed to working only during the day as a mobile hairdresser.
Yeah.
And I did that for a long time until, like I said, my youngest was in year 9, and I discovered that I could go back to school and retrain and change my life for the better.
Yeah. It's a huge, and look, I think lots of us do that where it's like I have to just put one foot in front of the other. There might be a need or a want to have to provide in a certain season of our lives. And like I think back to the hours that I pulled as a young therapist, not because I wanted to or not because I didn't want to. It was just like, well, that's just how it has to be done. And certainly as I got into coaching, as I was massaging full time, I had kids in kinder and primary school and stepping into coaching as well and making courses and things like that. It's like not necessarily sustainable in the long term, but I think sometimes it just is, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just so. And then I also think that it allows for a greater level of boundaries later on to go, no, I am never living like that ever again in my life. I mean, thinking about the hours I know that you do now and the great boundaries you have around that, just thinking about you working at 2 a.m, I'm like, what? Sally Nicholas, she's never done that before. No way.
Yeah, we all do things when we're younger, and they always say you gain a little bit of wisdom as you get older, and I'm pretty sure that's true. My husband being a subcontractor truck driver, other people that would hear this would go, oh yeah, well, he's rolling in it. But I can tell you truck driving's feast or famine. So there were some weeks we lived on sausages and other weeks we lived on roast beef. So yeah, you really had a roller coaster ride. But we put two kids through private school, and that was on one wage. So we learnt to budget, and I'm a very big budgeter. And I don't have to do it quite so strictly now, but back then everything was accounted for. So we could keep the truck on the road, put the kids through school and pay our bills and put food on the table like anybody else. It's just we all have different stories and trials, and we just tackle them in our own way.
Yeah. Well, look, what was that like? Like, as if you were working part time and your husband's full time, and obviously whatever is happening in the business, like you said, you had to keep the truck on the road because he's a subcontractor, so no job security. What was it like for you guys in your relationship? Like, how did you navigate some of those tricky conversations when, I mean, I know I'm married and I've been married a long time, and I know that two of us look at the same amount in a bank account and we see two different things. One of us is like, woohoo, shopping, and the other one is going, whoa, that is not enough, etc. So, and I won't say which one's which, but if you've listened to the podcast long enough, you know which ones I'm talking about. For you guys, how did you navigate those tricky conversations?
In the early years of our marriage, I used to put all the bills on the fridge, like a lot of people do. And Robert used to get quite anxious when he would see them all. So I thought, oh, well, okay, I shouldn't do that. I should put them away and I will just pay things, and he doesn't need to have that worry. But that was also the wrong thing to do, because there was times where he'd look at the bank account and goes, where's all the money? And I go, oh, well, I paid this and I paid this and I paid this. But for him, it was like the money just disappeared. And I needed to bring him along on the journey, instead of either protecting him from it or just doing it all myself and not including him and taking him along. So there was things that I had to learn, because really he's been a subcontract truck driver from, I think, the first year we were married. He decided, he came to me and said, I'd like to buy my first truck. That freaked me out. But he's now up to his 4th truck, and hopefully it's pretty much going to be his last one. But that is now paid off. So all our trucks have been paid off over that time, and we've worked to do that. We've had to borrow to do it and then paid them off. But yeah, I had to bring him along on the journey. I couldn't protect him from it. But if someone's listening to this and they've got their massage business or whatever business they be, take your partner along with you. Don't leave them back on the track, because they just don't understand if you don't share it with them. And yeah, they're going to have to come along sometimes kicking and screaming, because they, depending on their personality, they sometimes just don't want to hear those hard truths. I sat down and did a big budget once, or several times I have, but the first one I did, Robert had it in his head how much he needed to earn every week. And it was quite a good figure. But when I sat down and showed him how much we really needed to earn every week to cover our bills, he was shocked.
Yeah.
Because he thought we were doing okay and we weren't.
Yeah. And, I think that is such a great point when we're in business, and I'm thinking of this in relation to, like, if you're turning over $50,000 or $100,000 or $150,000 a year in your business, and it's like, woohoo, a partner who doesn't understand can look into that and go, why are you only bringing home $5,000 or $10,000? Like, what is going on? And to be fair, there is some inequality in that, and there is some issues in your business if that's how it's going. And please contact me because, hey, we do coaching. However, what I think is really important is, like you said, bringing your partner along for the journey. And rather than just assuming A, they know, or B, keeping them in the dark, actually having those conversations to say, okay, here's my budget. Like, this is what I turn over in my business. This is what it costs to open the doors. This is how many clients I know I need to see each week. And I know that if I see this many, I cover all my expenses. And if I see this many, we start to make profit. So to be able to say to your husband at that time in your life, okay, this is what you think we have to earn, but actually this is what we need in order to cover all our home bills as well, then that's a tricky conversation, because there's always that it's a vulnerable conversation to have, because you don't know how they're going to respond, and obviously they're going to bring their stuff to the situation. But at the end of the day, if you have made a decision as a team that he's working and you're working in the home, then that conversation has to be had.
Oh, absolutely. It's a tough conversation. I'm not saying it's easy in any way, but depending on how strong your relationship is, also is how it does unfold. So he finally realised that okay, as much as I wasn't bringing in my hairdressing massage, my mobile hairdressing was a hobby. When I look back on it, it really was a hobby. It was a cash only business, and I just did a number of clients that paid for fuel in the car and put some food on the table. Didn't pay any big bills. Robert's wage paid that, but it just kept things ticking over. And now I think back on it, I still have a micro business with Yu Yang's Massage, but it's a lot bigger than what I did as hairdresser.
Yeah, okay. So let's kind of move forward to when you were studying. What was it like going back to school in your mid-40s as somebody who'd had a reasonable amount of life experience up until that point? Like, what was that like for you, stepping back into that? I think learning is quite vulnerable, and it can be kind of scary going in on your first day, and I know for me, my first anatomy session where they're like, sternocleidoid mastoid, it's a 17-letter word, and I was like, it does what? It's a contralateral what? It's all the things. So what was that like for you?
Yes, it was very daunting. I remember the first exam we did. not having to sit an exam for 30 years just about blew me out of the water. But I sort of went, no, you've always wanted to do this, pick yourself up, start again. Out of my class, I wasn't the eldest, but I was one of the eldest. The oldest in my class, she was 51. And then there was a couple of us sitting in our mid-40s. And then the youngest, I think she was 20. So there was a huge range of difference, but we all came with different skills. One of the biggest books that we had to do was industry skills. And it was a great big thick book. To me, it wasn't hard. I found that one of the easiest books to do, but it was one of the thickest ones because I'd already been doing GST bookwork for my husband's business since GST came in the 2000s. So for me, that was like, cool, I can do this one standing on my head, which I did. But the ones in their 20s really struggled with that book because they did not have the skills previous to do it. So I did help some of the younger ones with that because they said, how do you do it? And I said, but I don't find it hard. But yes, I was in my mid-40s.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit different.
Yeah. Okay. And so did you ever work for anyone else in massage, or did you go straight to working from your home?
No, I just went straight for work in my home. Because I'd worked for myself for so long, I couldn't see myself going back into the big wide world and actually answering to a boss. I don't think that probably would have worked very well.
Nice honesty there.
I thought I was going to do mobile massage because I was a mobile hairdresser. When I wrote my business plan for school, they said, oh, what do you plan on doing? And I said, oh, I'll just be a mobile massage therapist because I was a mobile hairdresser. Didn't see any problem in it until just before I qualified. I decided to take my portable table to my parents' house. They were probably in their early 80s at the time. And Dad could barely get onto my table at the height that I needed to work at, and Mum couldn't get on it at all, and I had to drop it down for her. And in turn, she was worried about my back leaning over further. Yeah. So that was a big eye-opener, and it was like a light bulb moment. So as we drove home from my parents, we chatted about, maybe this is not the right thing to do. And we had a spare room at the time, our fourth bedroom, which wasn't being used. It was basically one of those rooms that you put all your junk in. Robert called it the too hard basket. And yeah, we thought, well, there is this spare room. Let's make use of it instead of it just being a storage room. We had a big floor-to-ceiling window. We took that out, put in a glass sliding door, so everyone walked directly from our front steps straight into that room. It was nearly directly opposite our front steps. So they weren't wandering through the house. All my whole massage business was contained in that room. My high caps machine was in there. Pretty much everything was in there. So, and the only thing is if someone needed to use the bathroom, they had to use the family toilet, which was across the hall. I worked out of there for 8 years. It served me very well. I got to the 6-year mark and realised I probably couldn't grow anymore in that one room. And I always wanted to have a bigger business, other modalities. And we had built a big American barn next to the house. In that planning stage, we decided that if I needed it, I could take a third of that American barn and create my clinic out of that. So that's what we did. And in 1st of July 2019, I moved into that new building. Went, wow, this is really nice. And as you know, Lesh, Robert and I actually built it ourselves. That I can honestly say I put up every wall and ceiling panel. nearly killed ourselves doing it. People might think that we had arguments, but we actually worked really, really well because we could see our goal at the end.
Yeah.
And we knew, and Robert, I designed it, and if you can explain to Robert exactly what you want, he's very good at putting it into place.
Yeah.
So he came along on my crazy idea and built me a beautiful clinic that I love to bits. And I'm very grateful that he trusted what I wanted to do and was willing to give me a third of his building.
Giving up a bit of the man cave. Like, oh, that's
Yes.
true love right there, Sally. If he hadn't showed it up until that point.
Yes. He tells everyone that I took half his shed. I tell him he failed fractions. And so I only took a third, but I'm actually thinking about taking a little bit more. So he might end up giving me half his shed.
Maybe it was prophetic. He actually knew.
Yeah.
And it is like, I'm blessed to have been there and experienced some of your services and seen the intentionality in that clinic, from the beautiful wood paneling that comes from a tree that was felled off your parents' land,
thank you.
to the doors that open and close, and every room is self-sufficient with sinks, and it's so beautiful. Even the electric blinds that come up and down depending on what needs to happen, and the beautiful heating that's on a Bluetooth, and it's so intentionally designed. And thinking about where you came from in terms of mobile massage between, would you say 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. through to now working the clinic hours that you want, running the business on your terms, looking to expand in different ways. It's such a it's such a contrast and such an incredible journey. What would you say, like, what are a couple of things that you've had to learn about you as you've transitioned to creating life on your terms?
Believing in myself. As you know, I have a fairly good rebooking rate, and I was thinking about that while preparing for this podcast. I'm thinking, how did I get there? So as a hairdresser, people go to the hairdressers are pretty good at rebooking. They always say, oh, we'll put you in for your next haircut or your colour. So I didn't find that hard at all, because that was something I had done for many years. But as a massage therapist, I didn't believe in myself to start with, because people would come in and they'd say, oh, when should I have another massage? And they opened the door, but I never jumped through it. It was just like, I'd sort of go, oh, you'll know your body. When you feel it, you'll know when to ring me up again. And it wasn't until a little bit later I thought, oh, you're such a dum-dum. They just were asking you when they wanted the rebooking. And so it didn't take me long, but it was just that first initial, I didn't believe in myself that people wanted to come back and see me. That how could I be such a good massage therapist and people wanted to see me? No, that's not right. They didn't really want to see me. Then I just realised, I thought, no, you've got the experience, you've done your training, and obviously I'd given them a good massage and they wanted to come back to me.
Yeah. And what about in that, can we go here? I haven't pre-framed this, but I'm going to ask anyway. So one of the things that I know you struggled with at the start of our conversations was around putting prices up, because you had a certain way that you like to do it. Can you share with us what it was like for you to go from charging what you thought was a reasonable amount to then charging now what you know you're worth? What was that transition? What was that journey like for you?
Would you like me to say what I was charging you originally?
Please do.
When we met, I was charging $85 an hour. I now charge for new clients $130, and my rebooking clients is $120. So in that, we met in the September, and yes, I was like, oh no, I couldn't possibly go up to 110 from 85. That was going to kill me. But yes, I had a bit of a system that every 1st of January, I would put up my prices $5 or $10. So to go from 85 to 110 made me feel sick. So I waited. Yeah, I was the bit of a rebel in me was like, no way you're going to make me do it now. I will wait. I will wait to my 1st of January. And I went from 85 to 99. So to me, that was a huge jump. I'd gone up $14. So that was January of 2020. And then as we all know, we had COVID hit. So I closed for 15 weeks. I reopened on the 1st of July, very briefly. But in that time, I put up on Facebook that I brought in all these new procedures for COVID safety. And at the bottom of that little post, I put, and due to all these these extra things I've incorporated, we will be having a small price rise. So in some ways, COVID did me a little favor because I jumped then from 99 to 110. So I got to your 110 in the 6 months. Yeah, COVID gave me a little push as well. So I know it did hurt some other people. And yes, it hurt my business that I was closed all up for 25 weeks in 2020. But price rise, yes, it gave me a little boost. So I did from July of 2020, 110. And then in March of 21, I decided to put an extra $10 on for initial clients. So I went from initial clients 120, regulars 110, and then on 1st of January this year, I went to 130 for me, 120 for rebooking. My staff member then was given my old price. So if there was any problems with clients worried about the price rise for me, they could take on the old price with my staff member. So she is 120 for her initial consultation, and then she's 110 for rebooking. So there you go. In a couple of years, I got to more than what you wanted me to do.
Woohoo! She's getting gold stars. So, Sally, what was it like when you first had to say 110, or 120 or whatever it was? Like, guys, I'm really curious to know for somebody who is, has a lot of life experience, and I don't just mean mature in years. I mean, with the experiences you have had a lot of life experience. And doing it is that, like you said, it made you feel sick. And I always call it an undie tightening moment when it's like, but I'm curious to know, like, what was it like for you to have to, or to want to move through that uncomfortability?
Prior to doing that, I used to put a sign up in my clinic. So in this, actually the room that I'm sitting in now was my old clinic room. It's now my office. And I used to put a sign up basically in front of their face where they came to lie down on the table. And I'd put it there for 2 months. So from 1st of November every year, I would put the prices were going up 1st of January. Warned everybody, felt like the hammer was going to fall on me for 2 months. Felt totally sick, waiting for the arguments to happen. Nothing was ever did because most of the time, no one saw it. And come 1st of January, they would go, oh, you put your prices up. And I go, yeah, sign's been there for 2 months. But no one ever saw it. So when I moved into my new clinic and you made me put my prices up, Lish.
So nasty like that.
I went, well, fine. I'm not going to put a sign up. What's the point? No one sees it and reads it anyway. So come 1st of January, sometimes I would say it. Most of the time I didn't. I would just put it through. I think I probably had 1 or 2 people complain. I can remember only one really particular, and it now goes up all the time. So that was when I went to that sort of 85 to 99.
Yeah.
And after that, no one ever says anything. And I don't tell them, I don't warn them.
Yeah.
Most people expect either the 1st of January or the 1st of July.
Yep.
And yes, I've done it other times, like when I put up for my extra $10 for initial consultations. I did that in March.
Yep.
So I've never had anyone complain. So I don't put myself through that torture of putting signs up or telling anyone. It just happens.
Yeah.
As I've said to other therapists, you go off to your doctor, your dentist, and you don't even think when you go there, and you don't even remember what they charged you last time anyway. So why should I worry about it as much as I did years ago?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, like when we've come from a really, like if we have been in a place where we've had to stick to a strict budget, I think that often is what can affect sometimes our behavior around our own price rises, because it's like, well, I wouldn't have budgeted for an extra 10 or 15 or 14 or whatever it is. However, often we might have one or two clients in our database who are like that, but majority, 95 to 98% of the people we see are usually not in that situation, or not in a situation that they are that strapped for cash. And if they are, then we can always do things like extend their treatment time, but the time between treatment, or put them down to a 45-minute, or charge them a concession rate, even if they don't have a concession card. Like, we usually know our clients pretty well. So it's, yeah, I think it's important to realize that, and then be able to move through to be able to make a greater difference. Because obviously when you start to make more money, the difference it means you can employ an admin person, you can have staff members come on, you can extend into the next iteration of what might be coming. Like there's so many more opportunities when we have cash flow there, especially when we have a history of being very resourceful with the money we have. You can see really incredible patterns that what may have held you back, now that you have abundance, is actually one of your incredible, yet another one of your superpowers to be able to help your business move forward. So I think that's really exciting. And I don't think this is conversations that the young people of today, Sally, I'm still on the sexy side of, less than 45. So I can say that. And I think that it's important to hear that sometimes we have to do the hard work before we have the easier times, and that learning how to manage money well in any capacity will set us up for success when we have abundance. Because if we have crappy behaviors with money when we have a little, we will have crappy behaviors with money when we have a lot. As a mentor that you and I both know, Heather Yellen, talks about, money is simply an amplifier. It's no more than that. If you have more money and crappy habits, you're just going to have more wobbly things happen. Whereas if you learn to be resourceful and responsible with what you've got, learn to budget, learn to manage money, learn to manage cash flow, those incredible skills are a really incredible skill set that we can take into the future, and certainly take into business, and then apply it in our personal lives as well.
Oh, absolutely. We had a really bad period through our years that we had a bad accountant. We had a good accountant. I don't know why we left him, but we went to this other one, and they just about sent us down the gurgler. We had a really big bill with the tax office, which I know other people have had problems, and I've heard on other podcasts. And you might think that, yes, I've done it easy, but no, we had such a big bill. I was scared to answer the phone because I thought it was tax office. I can honestly say we actually crawled out of that deep, dark tunnel that we were in and got out the other side. I put my foot down and said, we're going back to our old accountant, and I will never leave him again. He has been our accountant now for quite a number of years. I have to travel quite a distance to see him. He's not just locally, but I'll stick to him like glue because he got us out of that hole we're in. I choose to pay our income tax every week to the ATO. It's not what other people do. They put their money aside in a bank account, but I found that was too easy, as having a truck driver that would ring up and say, how much money is in the bank? And I always said, what's wrong with the truck? Because that's the only reason he wanted to know, because he doesn't really do the books and doesn't know from one day to the next what's in the account. So it's the most terrifying question a wife of a truck driver gets, is how much money's in the bank, because is it just a small thing that's happened, or has he blown the engine up and it's going to cost thousands? So when we were putting the money aside and I would have it there, it was too easy to then go, okay, I've got to get the truck back on the road, so let's just rob Peter to pay Paul, and we'll get the truck back on the road and we'll deal with the money that's taken out of their account. It's too hard to put back. I fought very hard to have this because my accountant said we couldn't do it. And they said the ATO won't let you do it. But I now have a direct debit, comes out of our account every week, goes into the ATO account. And at the end of the year, when I do my tax return, I walk into my accountant's office with my head held high. Before, I used to walk in cringing, thinking, what am I going to have to be up for? And I always then I never had enough money in the account. I always then had to come up with a payment plan with the ATO, and you feel like you've just paid it and then you've got to start again. You're on this treadmill that you were never going to get off.
Yeah.
So once we changed and I made a choice to do it, it wasn't that I didn't want to accept to live on their terms. I wanted to live life on my terms.
Yeah.
And this I knew was going to work for us.
Yeah.
So I did. I jumped up and down and I said, no, I am not doing it the way the ATO wants me to do it.
Yeah.
This is my plan. Put it into action and see how it works out. So my accountant now says, I am so glad you fought for that, because he said, I've watched you over the years become, a happier person, because I wasn't living in fear.
Yeah.
I came out of that fear mode and lived life on my terms.
Yeah. And look, I think it's so huge, because often people become really frozen in that, and when we're in fear, we can't make great choices, like being very intentional to set up an entire new clinic. Like, you can't actually live in the constraints of, holy crap, what's going to happen, when that fear is present. Whereas when you manage that fear and go, right, well, this is what I'm going to do, this, and this, and I'm going to fight for that because I know it's going to make a difference, the other things start to flow in such an incredible way. It doesn't mean it's not through hard work, but there's so much more possibility when that's taken care of.
Yeah. So I couldn't have done my clinic back when I was living in that as you call messy. I was living in the messy.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done my new clinic because we just didn't have the money. We didn't have, I didn't have a pot of money sitting there, but from our planning to the moving in was a 2-year process.
Yep.
And I can honestly say that I walked into that clinic with not 1 cent owing to anyone. Yes. That we had fully paid for that clinic. Just recently someone asked, and I said, add an extra 25% to your budget. I had a figure in my mind what it would cost. We went way over that, but it didn't matter because we just did it as we had it, and we did most of it ourselves. Anything we could do, we did do. I painted, I laid floors, I put up walls and ceilings, and with my husband and my best friend by my side. And we created this, for me, it's an amazing clinic, which we'd never built a house before. So to build our clinic and build that building, it was amazing time, and we did do it. But to walk in there, I actually got one of my Well, actually, I had a client ask me who was going to be my first client in, and I said, would you like to be? And he said, I'd love to be. And I put a ribbon across the door, and I gave him a pair of scissors, and I got him to cut the ribbon into my clinic. I didn't put it on Facebook, but I did video it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a defining moment with a client coming into my new clinic.
Space that you dreamed up and been working towards. Oh, I've got
goosebumps. And I paid for the whole lot. That he didn't walk in and then I had a debt that was going to strangle me.
Yeah.
It was all paid for.
Yeah. And look, I think, again, when we have great financial management skills, which it is a learned skill, nobody wakes up and is like, or born with great financial skills. It is a learned skill and pattern of behavior to learn, how do I do it? How do I communicate it? And then what is the beautiful, amazing stuff I can create, like a beautiful clinic, which is literally diagonally. For those that are watching, you can see Sally's image behind her is the beautiful Yu Yangs, which is just it's in Lara. So south of Melbourne and north of Geelong-ish, not to scale. And it's absolutely beautiful. And that's basically what she gets to see every morning when there's, fog and it's a clear sky and a full moon. And when we handle the foundations and we get that covered, the impact that we get to have, I think, is incredible. So yeah, Sally, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you for sharing the amazing things and the tricky things and everything in between. I really appreciate your wisdom today.
Thank you so much for having me.